So ever since we heard Billy say,
Well, as we all know, the Zeo crystal has 5 subdivisions, which means there's only enough power for 5 rangers. I think that it's time to pass the power on to someone else. Tanya, I'm giving my crystal to you. From this point on, you are a Power Ranger.
it's been making me think that there's at least one universe where Zeo Ranger 2 looks like this. And if that's the case, then there has to be a few teams out there in the multiverse that look different, right? So I guess here's a quick list of here's a list of potential different colors for people that we've seen in the show. Starting with Rocky, the blue Turbo Ranger. Well, let's talk about what that does change. That means no Justin in the original team. And I say the original team because I assume that when the other 4 members go to transfer their power over to the new team, being, TJ, Cassie, Carlos, Ashley, I would assume that Rocky would probably still pick Justin for some reason to be the replacement. And you would think that that's a better thing because Rocky is a more experienced ranger than Justin. And, I mean, yes, he is. But I feel like Justin is a more available Blue Ranger. Like, during the Turbo series, Justin did a lot of the reconnaissance and going on missions ahead of the other team because they were always so busy. And then he would contact them to let them know what was going on, and then they would come and back him up later most of the time until the new team came in. That's how Justin got a lot of his experience. He was out there in the field by himself a lot, which I think would hinder him by the time TJ and everybody came around. So I actually think Rocky not getting hurt and being the Turbo Blue Ranger would hinder the team as opposed to be a benefit to the team. But it's Rocky, so when is he ever a benefit to the team? I'm sorry. On to the next Ranger. Let's go. The next one is a real interesting one because we have Corone as the Yellow Space Ranger. So this one is interesting because immediately that means we have no Astronema. Potentially. And without Astronema, that makes us think, is Ecliptor the main villain of the series? Or, of the main field villain of that potential space season? And Dark Spectre, the main, overarching villain. How does that affect the Alliance of Evil as a whole, almost? Also, the original space team dies, except for Andros and Zane, who gets so injured he's in a cryostasis until he pops up as the 6th Ranger for the new team. So, does Corone being there make them win? Or does Corone die with the rest of the Space Ranger team, and we have a much darker Andros? A much, much darker Andros. I care to argue he doesn't allow the Turbo team to join his team. I would almost argue he is on a one-man, unaliving Marvel Endgame himself mission against the Alliance of Evil at that point. I wouldn't be surprised if Andros popped up in earlier seasons of Power Rangers as a one-off Red Ranger to show up, fight villains, not help the Ranger team whatsoever, and leave just because that's where the battle took him, not because he was there to help. So, really, no Astronema could give us a darker Andros. It could give us a complete into the space season before it even starts. And our whole army changes because Ecliptor is definitely not going to be this wholesome person on the inside that he became from raising a girl. But then it gets crazier because they have the mind control chip. They have the mind control chip. So what if during that final battle of the previous space team, instead of Corone dying or them winning, they kidnap and brainwash her, and that become the origin story for like Cyber Astronema, the second one, when she was like the soulless, heartless monster thing. And that Astronema having Ranger experience is ridiculously dangerous. So she might comp the series before they can win, no Countdown to Destruction style. If she becomes Astronema later in life, it might be a whole Psycho Green type of situation. I hate to bring that up, but I don't hate to bring that up. So it's really like, ooh, this is a crazy one. I would love to read about this or see something about this one. But on to the next Ranger. The next one didn't happen because of a moment me and my cousin memed relentlessly, and that is Mike being Galaxy Red. Obviously, Mike didn't become Galaxy Red because he fell into a crevasse in the center of Miranoi and died, in quotations. Before doing it, he had a whole moment where he kept trying to convince Leo, his younger brother, to take his sword, while his younger brother was trying to get him to give him his hand as he is hanging inside said crevice. And they had a whole moment where it was just a back and forth of, the saber, your hand, the saber, your hand, which we memed relentlessly as kids. We used to meme it a lot. But fun thing is, so you would assume Mike being Galaxy Red would be better because he is like military trained by Terraventure and has a pretty, commanding role within the Terraventure military. You would think Mike would be a better choice for the Red Ranger, but he isn't, because being a Power Ranger is different than being a soldier. Especially in the situation that the Galaxy team are placed in, where they are fighting a more parasitic type of threat. The Trakina and the rest of their army are very insect-like in the way that they work. They try to infest and destroy, if that makes sense. And Leo has a trait that Mike doesn't, which makes him the perfect Red Ranger for the Galaxy team. That being, Leo is simply a survivor. Mike will try to complete the mission in the way that the military has trained them to complete it. And from the episode where we see them have a whole alien spaceship episode of Lost Galaxy, you will learn really quickly that being too military-minded will get you destroyed in the Power Ranger universe. Mike even has told Leo himself that Leo is a better choice for Galaxy Red than himself. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. There's no Magna Defender. Basically, if Leo isn't Galaxy Red, if Leo isn't Galaxy Red, the story goes, Mike and the team probably still beat the villain in the first episode. Leo gets pardoned because he's the younger brother of Mike and he just lives on Terraventure. Or Leo gets arrested, or Leo gets sent back to Earth somehow. Regardless, that's the end of Leo's story. Magna Defender either doesn't make it out of the crevice because he can't possess Mike's body, or he does make it out, but he doesn't learn from Leo the right lesson and doesn't sacrifice himself. Or he destroys the team fighting them because they are in the way. Magna Defender was such a hindrance on the team prior to joining the team. Yeah, he came in and helped, but he didn't help because he was helping them. This goes back to like if Andros was Dark Andros. They're not there because they're trying to help the team. They're just two different missions that happen to have intertwined with each other at this moment. So I definitely think Mike being Galaxy Red, like the previous couple situations, probably would be a bigger hindrance on the team than asset. But that's pretty much it for that one. So on to the next Ranger. The next one is kind of a weird one because it's Carter as the Titanium Ranger. which is a weird one because it all is kind of based on how they decided to use the Titanium Ranger powers, right? Like, when we see them being used, it's almost like an upgrade at first when we see Carter testing the power out. So I wonder if they were going to permanently switch the leader of the, Lightspeed team from the Red Ranger to the Titanium Ranger. And would Carter just be the Titanium Ranger for the rest of the series and they still have 5 members? Would they have replaced Carter's Red Ranger with somebody else from outside of the team? And then Carter technically been the 6th Ranger, even though he would still be the leader? Kind of like Tommy, being the White Ranger. Or was it like a upgrade thing? Like, would it have been like a battleizer type of thing? Like, would he be red? Would he be Lightspeed red most of the time? But when he was in a, life or death situation or a situation where they needed more power than normal, he transforms into the Titanium Ranger from the Red Ranger. Like, would the Titanium Ranger be called the Titanium Ranger because it's technically an armor? Or, I don't know. I guess I'm rambling a little bit. Then that brings upon, Ryan. What happens to Ryan? Because Ryan was evil at the beginning of Lightspeed regardless, right? It wasn't a, like, evil ranger type of situation. He was evil and he stole the Titanium Morpher. So I wonder if Ryan would have been like a spy for the villains and just not been a ranger in the field at all. Or would they have given him, would they have adapted the Demon Hunter suit from Go-Go 5 and gave that to Ryan? And maybe he'd been like a, extra ranger type of thing, kind of like how Magna Defender was, or, Endure or something like that. You know what I mean? I don't know. But maybe they would have done something like that. But I guess it all really would be determined based off of how they chose to give Carter the Titanium powers. Or maybe later in the series, after Ryan, showed up, he would have been given the red or Titanium Morpher later anyway. Who knows? But what I do know is I think it would have been kind of cool to see Carter Grayson as the Titanium Ranger for a little bit. But Ryan is one of my, if not my favorite Ranger. So I'm not too mad. A win is a win. On to the next Ranger. The next one is interesting for different reasons because just it happening means it might not happen. And that is Jarrod being Jungle Fury Red. What I mean by that is, at the beginning of the series, the obvious 3 people to be the next in line to be the Paishui Master were Jarrod, Theo, and Lily, not Casey, Theo, and Lily. And prior to Jarrod releasing Daishi and proving that he is not worthy internally of being the next, in line to be Paishui Master, it then passed to Casey. And Jarrod is exiled. The problem with that is if Jarrod doesn't release Daishi, right, does the team still need to go and train with RJ and become the Jungle Fury team in the first place? You could argue that one of the other members of the villain group or a different villain would have eventually arrived. Or someone would have eventually released Daishi later, which, I mean, to that, then yes, Jarrod would become, Jungle Fury Red, Theo would be blue, and Lily would be yellow. And the interesting part of that is the Zord would technically be different because the Red Ranger spirit would be the spirit of the lion. So the Jungle Pride Megazord would have a lion base, and I wonder if that would change the way that it functioned at all, if not completely rearrange the way that the Megazord worked. I also wonder if he would still have the shark and gorilla spirits later, or would Daishi have been, not Daishi, I'm sorry, or would Jarrod have been trained by one of the other Paishui Masters instead? There are a lot of interesting and fun what ifs for if Jarrod became the Red Jungle Fury Ranger. That also calls into play what would have happened to Camille if Jarrod wasn't possessed by Daishi. Does she become a more ruthless, Renji? Or does she still turn good later in the series? I'm not sure. I know it's kind of a disappointment that we don't get the lion suit anymore, because that is probably one of the most epic suits in Power Ranger history / Sentai history. But We also do get a Lion Red Ranger, and that is kind of cool. I do think that is cool. But that's pretty much it for Jarrod, and we're on to the next Ranger. The last one really has the potential to not change much, being RJ as the Shark Ranger instead of the Wolf Ranger. If RJ never left his father's teachings to learn his own path and was trained by the Shark Master Finn, I wonder if instead of becoming the Purple Ranger, the fourth Ranger on the team would have been a second lighter Blue Ranger, being RJ. I also wonder if maybe the Phantom Rangers didn't exist at all, or there were only two. Or there could have been two Shark Rangers and we could have had a White Ranger versus White Ranger type thing where RJ fights the Phantom Ranger version of his father and they're both in the Blue Ranger costumes. I don't think it changes a lot, but I do think it would probably change a lot of RJ's mindset as well. He might not be as Mr. Miyagi in his mindset and be more akin to the way that Master Finn works. Or he might not be as trained of a master because it's not his own path and what he wanted to do, so he's not as naturally adept to it. So I wonder if maybe he's not even the master sensei character for Jungle Fury if he becomes the Blue Ranger. Maybe it is still Master Mal, but at the same time, he would probably come in like his Sentai counterpart as opposed to being the mentor, but being a fourth Ranger type as the Blue Ranger. And I think that would be probably interesting. But I definitely think outside of maybe that, it really doesn't affect the season too much. It would just give us two Blue Rangers and we would sadly lose probably another one of the coolest suits in Ranger history. Also, the first Purple Ranger in Power Ranger history. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure we lose more than we gain with this one, but it's still interesting nonetheless. So that's it for this one. But aside from that, that's my list. I'm sure I missed a couple. If I did, let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Also, subscribe to the Series Operator Orange YouTube channel for longer form content. Also, join the community down at the Alphabet Soup Discord server so you can meet other fans like yourself. Share some fan art, share some fanfic, share some fan theories that you guys might have. Or join the chat and chat with us so we can get to know each other a little bit better. Also, we're getting ready to start the series from the very start in a couple of days, so don't miss out on that. There will be more announcements on that in the server. So, aside from that, I'm Series Operator Orange, and we're out of here. Get in gear.